Marketing Your Private Practice is a podcast where you'll learn easy to implement tips and strategies to grow your business without spending all day online. I'm your host, Kathy Colaiacovo, and I teach practitioners the Thrive marketing method to create simple and streamlined plans by focusing on long-term strategies, not just social media. Discover ways to spend less time on your marketing, attract more clients, and build the financial freedom that comes with a thriving practice. One where you have time left in your day for the people and things that matter to you. Hey, private practice heroes. Thanks for tuning into the podcast today. I'm your host, Kathy Colaiacovo, and today I want to talk about one of the most frustrating things I see business owners struggle with when it comes to marketing their services. Explaining what they do without over-explaining it. This is something I've seen happen hundreds of times. A business owner meets someone maybe at a networking event or on a Zoom call or even just chatting with other parents at their kids' school. And they get asked the classic question, "So, what do you do?" And they answer. But sometimes after they answer, the other person might be kind of wrinkling their nose, squinting their eyes a little bit, pausing. I always find that sometimes they turn up an eyebrow, maybe a look of confusion comes across their face, and they say back to you, "Oh, okay, but what exactly is it you do?" Because they don't understand. Ever happened to you? It has definitely happened to me. And there And those signs, that body language you're seeing, the confusion, the eyebrow turned up, the, wrinkled nose, wrinkled forehead, those are all signs that they didn't get your message. And you know it because you do what most people do when you realize, oh crap, they didn't understand what my business is all about. You try to fix it, which is when it happens. All the backpedaling, the rambling, well, it depends, that turns into some sort of spiral. Sometimes I refer to it as the verbal diarrhea of words that come out. And that is you struggling desperately, trying to help the other person understand what it is you do for a living. And trust me, I have been there. I don't call myself the queen of 3-hour consults for nothing. But I did learn my lesson way back when. And I stopped the rambling. Because once you start that rambling, you suddenly turn into this person who is great at their work, but you're stuck over explaining what you do and just trying anything you can to make the other person get it. Now, here's the thing. When we look at this as an issue, when it comes to marketing your business or your services, it isn't that you're not good at networking. It isn't that you're not good at explaining what you do. It's a messaging clarity issue. And today we're going to address that on the podcast. And I do want to share, today is actually episode 150 of Marketing Your Private Practice with Kathy C. And I have to say, I'm really proud to have hit this milestone with you who are listening today. And whether this is your first episode or your 50th listening in, thank you. If you would like to help me celebrate, all I ask is that you take a minute and leave me a review wherever you're listening to the podcast. Now, I will tell you, typically you can only do this on Apple or Spotify, but wherever you're listening in, if there's some way for you to do a ranking or a rating, I would truly appreciate it. Now, let's get back to the lesson today about marketing messaging. Unlike many others in the private practice marketing space, I will tell you, I'm not a dietitian or a therapist teaching what works for me. I've worked with over 1,200 private practice owners, and I like to make sure that I'm teaching everybody what works across all of those experiences. I add in my expertise in marketing, my superpower that I have when it comes to seeing things in a different way and being able to really put myself in other people's shoes, which is one of the ways that I can truly help my clients learn what they need to do to market their practice or service-based business. But in all of this, one of the most consistent marketing problems I see time and time again is unclear messaging. And when you go back and look at a lot of my podcast episodes, especially the free marketing reviews that I do, a lot of them focus on getting clarity on their messaging. Because if your messaging isn't hitting home with people, it's going to cause a problem in many different areas of your marketing. I want to make sure you do not have unclear messaging and that you are not over explaining every time you meet somebody and you're trying to explain what you do. The goal of this episode today is to teach you some ways to explain what you do without the over explaining so that you can get a yes from people that you're sharing that message with. The biggest issue that I have found most people run into with the messaging is that it does make your marketing harder when your message is not clear to people. If your message is fuzzy and has people wondering what you do versus giving them the feeling like you are the person to help them, that is when the messaging becomes a problem that affects all those other areas of marketing. You can post on Instagram, you can write letters, you can update your website. But if your marketing message does not hit home with people, it's not going to convert. And that means you're not going to turn people that run into you, hear about you, find you on your website. You're not going to turn them into clients. And this is why messaging is so important to marketing your services. The messaging pillar is one of the first ones we start with in the Thrive Marketing Academy, because when you are able to share your message with confidence and clarity, more people are going to say yes. Messaging is one of those key elements that affects all other aspects of your marketing. Your message is on your website, in your keywords, in your SEO. It helps in your social media profiles, not content yet. It helps in your marketing content, your lead magnet, the sales pages for services, words you post when you're connecting with people online, words you use in comments on social media, and yes, even the actual social media content too. And your message is also in the words you say to people when you're networking or connecting with referral partners or people you may not even know. Messaging is a huge part of your entire marketing presence. And this is why if you do not have a clear marketing message, it is not going to support all of those other places you're trying to do your marketing as well, all of the spots that I just mentioned. So no matter where you're saying or sharing your message, you've got to make sure that you nail it so people get what you do. Because when you don't do this, they're going to walk away, even if you're the perfect person to help them. And if you are someone who finds people are asking that dreaded question of, what is it that you do again? Once you have told them what you do, then you definitely need to listen up, because the marketing tools and info I'm going to share with you today will help you save that marketing message so you can share it anywhere, anytime with confidence and clarity. So let's talk about how you can build this messaging confidence. When I started my business back in 2008, I was part of a government-funded program here in Canada that was intended to help new entrepreneurs. One of the requirements for being in the program was attending 2 in-person networking events a month. Now, let me be clear. I still have, to this day, some social anxiety, but it was a lot more intense back when I started my business. I'm the person who used to faint in class analyzing a poem in front of people I sat with in class every day of the week when I was in school. So the idea of having to attend 2 in-person networking events terrified me. But I did it because I was determined to make my business work. And I will tell you something. I learned by doing that forced networking, as I called it back then, and it was a skill that changed my business forever. Because when you can clearly and confidently say what you do, people listen. And when they can't, they might forget about you. I learned something that changed my business forever. If you can clearly and confidently say what you do, people are going to listen. And when you can't, you're either going to confuse them and they're going to walk away, or they're going to be really polite and probably nod their head a few times, make some nice small talk, and then they're going to walk away as well. Practicing those messages and sharing over and over my elevator pitch during those forced networking events helped me really build that confidence. And that's what helped me show up with clarity, even when I was nervous, saying who I was, what I did, and what I offered. That is a big part of what I teach now in the Thrive Marketing Academy and working with my students, is showing people how they can definitively build that confidence and learn how to say what they do without over explaining it, being very clear so that whoever is listening understands what you're talking about and what you offer and who you are and how you help people and what kind of services you have. And you don't need to have it all in a long, convoluted explanation, but that is where people get to. A lot of us over explain. I still run into this to this day. I am not perfect by any means. And the reason I find that we do the over explaining, it's typically coming from a place of scarcity. We're often looking to have more clients, working with more people, making more revenue in our business. So when somebody doesn't understand what you do, you go to that feeling of, oh no, I could be losing a client if I can't get this person to understand what it is that I do. So you're really trying to sell your services as hard as you can by explaining everything about what you offer, trying to get the other person to understand so that you can answer their question of, what is it that you do again? So when you know your message doesn't hit home, when you hear that question or you see the body language when you tell someone the message, you do what everybody does and you try to fix things because you don't want to be misunderstood. You want to cover every angle about your services to make sure that they really haven't missed anything since they weren't really clear on what you did in the first place. And a lot of times then you start speaking to everyone, trying to get everything out that you possibly can instead of keeping it focused and keeping it narrowed down to that ideal client that you work with. And this is where you have to really remember clarity is what is going to build the trust. Confusion is going to break that trust. Simple, direct messaging is what connects with people and making sure they understand very clearly what it is that you do. So I've seen this in action at a lot more networking events than I can count even on two hands. But there are two moments that have stuck with me ever since I experienced them. One of them was a local one. It was part of an experience I had at a monthly networking event I used to go to pre-COVID. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think I shouldn't even identify it as pre-COVID because I think it was 2011 or 12, so it was quite a while ago. But this still sticks in my mind even 12, 13 years later. The group was a large group. It was a women's networking group. We would meet once a month. And at the event, every time, everybody had a moment for 30 seconds to stand up and share their elevator pitch. And they did time us on the elevator pitch because the group was large and they had to keep to their schedule that they had going on. But one person constantly went over every single time. And not only was she kind of dismissive on the time thing and, not being very respectful of that, the way that everyone else was. But what happened every single time she would introduce herself, she was over explaining things so much. Her message was really unclear. It was confusing. And she rambled on trying to explain how she worked with people and what happened instead of people understanding what she offered and what she did because it wasn't clear at all. It was making people tune out. And that's what happens when you get into that stage where you're over explaining things when you're trying to introduce yourself. Now, sometimes clarity is not in the rambling, but in trying to be clever about telling people about what you do and how you help people. I recall another time, the person that I remember from an event that I was at in the States one time was more trying to be a little clever about the marketing of what she did, but it didn't work at all because we were actually at an event and there was a bunch of us at a table working in a group And you always have your elevator pitches. If you start doing a group like this at a conference or an event, you typically introduce yourself so you'll have an idea of who you're working with at the table. And we had a table of 8. And when this one person introduced herself and what she offered, there was a few of us that were, had the eyebrows going up and we were confused as to what she was talking about. And then we finally got it. She had a dog walking business. Now, I have to say, that is a skill to be able to not share with clarity what it is you do as a service when you have a dog walking business. But that is extreme over explaining because she was trying to share so many different ways of what she did and how she did it. The other 7 of us at the table, not one of us would have guessed that that's what her business and her service was, dog walking. Clarity is so key when it comes to having a marketing message. You've got to get crystal clear on what you're saying, and that's how you're going to get a yes from people and not leave them dazed and confused. If you leave them dazed and confused, that's going to mean lost opportunities and lost clients. Now, as the person doing the explaining in the intros, sometimes we realize we're doing it, sometimes we don't. And these moments are exactly why I believe clarity isn't just important in doing your messaging and how you say it, it's essential. When people don't understand what you do, they won't remember you, they won't refer you, and they won't work with you. And that's how you lose those clients. And sometimes you lose it without even knowing it. So whether it's a verbal, written, or it's something you use in your marketing content, a clear, confident message is going to stop the over-explaining before you ever need to start explaining things. And once you've developed a marketing message like this, then you want to ensure you do what it takes to continually deliver that message with confidence when needed and where needed. So now, how do you stop it from happening? Because I'm pretty sure, like me, there's a few of you out there listening that you can think of some times when people said to you, "What is it you do? I don't really understand." The main way that you can stop this over-explaining is to have that clear messaging you can deliver on a moment's notice. How you make that happen is by having 2 things as part of your marketing toolkit. The first thing is you need to know and understand your 4 core marketing messages for your practice or your business. And number 2 is you need to be ready to confidently share them at any given time, whether it's verbally or written. So once you have these 2 things at the ready, that's when you begin to include them in your marketing content and in your networking content too. And your networking content is typically what you're saying to people at in-person or virtual networking events. And this is often where we do the most explaining because we're in the moment. We don't have notes prepared. We don't have a script in front of us. We don't have documents in front of us that we're going to post online. It is talking to someone face to face, and you can't really stop them and say, "Oh, just a minute, I have to read my script here of what I'm going to say to you." You need to be prepared. And that's why I say you want to be ready to confidently share your message at any given time. So how do you do that? Let's back up a bit and start with those 4 core marketing messages for your practice or your business. These are the 4 things that I like to help people learn to have and develop them and create them in such a way that they clearly help you tell people so they know exactly what you do. The first core marketing message is your crystal clear introduction. And this is how you're going to introduce yourself to people when you're talking to them. The second core marketing message is your 1-line offer statement. This is a way to say what you do, who you do it for, how it helps them, and it's all in one sentence. And this is something you'll typically use online, but oftentimes it can come back and be a very good way to tell people about what you do and how you help when you're talking to them in person as well. Now, your elevator pitch is the third one. And this I like to look at as a combo sometimes of your intro and your offer statement. Depending on the situation and where you are, you may make this a little bit longer than the intro and the offer statement that you have as well. The fourth thing are what I call CTA specific statements, call to action. specific statements. And these are statements that you might use over time to refer to specific actions you want people to take. Maybe it's something about signing up for a lead magnet or booking a call or registering for a workshop or a program you might offer. Having these specific statements that you've written out, that you've created, that you've developed, that clearly tell people, hey, if you're struggling with your marketing and you have some roadblocks you want to talk about, book a free marketing review with me. It's very simple. We'll talk about what's holding you back, and I'll get you some action steps to overcome that roadblock. That's a CTA specific type of statement. Once you have these 4 types of core marketing messages in place, you can then work on being ready to confidently share them at any given time, whether it's verbally or written. The written way, it's very easy how I teach people to do this. I have created what I call a Zoom intros document. And what it is basically a place where I save these 4 core marketing messages and update them over time. I call it a Zoom intros document. And the reason I called it that was mostly because it was helping me initially on Zoom calls. You get that opportunity to share who you are and what you do in the chat. So I created a document where I save all of these different types of intros that I have in these core marketing messages so I can copy and paste and use them whenever I need them. Now, when I think about it, yes, I originally named it because it was helping me on Zoom calls, but it has grown to much more than that. So I like to think of it as helping me zoom in on the intros whenever I need those intros, those core marketing messages, whenever and wherever they're needed. Because those messages aren't always just for your website or your marketing plan. They will come in very handy on these group networking calls, networking groups. They'll come in handy when you're networking on Facebook or LinkedIn or being at a virtual event, especially. And they're just there at the ready so that anytime you get the chance to quickly say what you do and who you help, you've got them there and you can use them. If you've ever scrambled to try and drop into the chat some sort of introduction for yourself, this marketing tool will become your best friend. One of the hidden benefits of using this is it does help you save time. And to be honest, what I found is networking online, having this in play helps you stay more focused on the networking that's happening because you're not spending like 5 minutes trying to type up an effective introduction that you can post in the chat. And while you're doing that, you're missing out on the real reason you came to the event in the first place, which was to connect with people. It is definitely something that I encourage people to create. Develop those 4 core marketing messages and then create that Zoom intros document. You can call it whatever you want. The biggest thing about it is you want to make sure it's where you can access it so easy, because if you're networking in a Zoom and using your phone and you get this opportunity, you should have it somewhere on your phone that you can hit copy and paste and use what you need out of it. And my bonus tip for using this is make sure that however you create those messages in there, if you are using links for actions, calls to action, don't write out your links without having them be an actual link. So what I mean by that is a lot of people, especially in Zoom networking meetings, they will put connect with me on Instagram and they'll just write, I'm at Pepper It Marketing. But then what happens is if they want to find you from the chat, because you didn't paste the actual link to your profile on Instagram, they have to go to Instagram and try searching you up and put your name in and then connect with you. I know it's just a few seconds, but it's really a lot easier for people to connect with you, and you'll get more connections if you put in the actual link there. So don't just write your username, go to Instagram or wherever you're trying to share, whatever it is, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever it is, your website even, copy and paste the link. And then when you put your information, your messaging together in that document, make sure anything you're talking about for a link has got the actual link so it's clickable. And that way people can just click through the notes that are in the chat and access and connect to you. It is a bit of a time saver, a clarity tool, and it's one of the best ways to always be ready for online and offline networking opportunities and being ready to share my message. Over time, you'll probably develop some added pieces of it in there, but I typically keep them down to those 4 messages and then having several of those CTA statement offers in there as well. I wanted to share a way that how helpful it has been. So I do teach this document to folks in my Thrive Marketing Academy, but I also talk about it a lot in some coffee talk sessions I've been hosting for the Center for Women in Business here in Halifax. And not too long ago, I actually forgot to mention, I talk about and I tell people to put their intro, a little information, their elevator pitch in the chat. But this one day I forgot to say and share some details about my Zoom intros document. Somebody else piped up and said, "Hey, I want to remind everybody one of the things Kathy was taught us." And she shared, the reason why they were seeing so many folks posting their intro so fast and easy in the networking group, because a lot of them were using this document that I had taught her about. And so they had their intro ready to copy and paste and post. That's how useful it's become. I've really noticed that because a lot of people talk about it in that coffee talk that I do. It's now become something they rely on. It just gives you everything you need to know and have those 4 messaging pieces that you need and have them at the ready whenever you need them. Now, developing those 4 messages will be the most challenging part of this. So I do have a couple ways to help you though. So number 1, if you're local to the Halifax, Nova Scotia area where I live, I'm actually hosting an in-person live workshop on Friday, June 6th called Nail Your Marketing Message. And I'm going to help people walk away from that event with a clear, confident message. So those core messages we've been talking about today, that's what we're going to be developing there. So you'll finally be able to say what you do in any situation and why it matters without over-explaining it, without the awkward intros, or using it in your marketing and having it fall flat. Plus, I'm going to share ways on how you can use it in your marketing content. I do have some early bird pricing on tickets for that. Visit nailyourmarketingmessage.ca if you want to learn more details and register. Now, I totally understand not everybody lives close to me. If you're not local, there are still different ways that you can get some help from me. So definitely book a free Thrive Discovery call and let's talk about where your messaging is, what might be getting in the way, and how you can go about improving it and fixing it. And I will put a link to both of those for you in the show notes. What are you going to do for action today? Well, the first thing I want you to think about doing is developing that clear, confident message that hits home with your ideal clients. And ideally, you're going to do this by developing those 4 core marketing messages for your practice or your business. You want to have them honed in and ready to go when you need to use them. As a reminder, those 4 things are your crystal clear intro, your 1-line offer statement, your elevator pitch, and those CTA specific statements. Once you have those, then I suggest you create something like this Zoom intros document that I've been talking about and start practicing the messages. Not only do you want to have the document saved so that you can use it in live situations, you also want to use it to practice and prepare for any time you're live and having to deliver those messages. When you do this, you'll build your comfort level and you'll build your confidence in being able to say those messages anytime you need to, whether it's something you post online or it's something you're going to say to someone face to face. Practice them, use them, refine them. Clarity is critical when it comes to your messaging. And if you want to stop over explaining what you're doing, the best way is to develop those 4 core messages. People are not going to act on your messages, on your marketing, if they don't understand what you can do. You can make this change. I've seen it happen hundreds of times. It might take a little bit of work up front, but it will always pay back in the long run. And that's it for today, folks. This is Kathy Colaiacovo signing off. Thank you again for being here for episode 150. And I'm going to leave you with this one last bit of advice. Remember, if you want to thrive in practice or business, that will mean always being ready to share who you are and what you do with crystal clarity so no one lifts their eyebrow and asks you back again What exactly do you do? I'll see you next time. You can find all of our show notes and resources mentioned at marketingyourprivatepractice.com. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram at pepperitmarketing and say hi. I'd love to hear any feedback you have, and make sure to rate and review the podcast and hit subscribe on your favorite player so you don't miss any future episodes.